Welcome to This Is Money podcast. I'm Georgie Frost, and joining me and Lee Boyce today is Helen Crane. Now, fed up as we are of all the economic gloom and doom at the moment, we're going to try for the next 45 minutes to look on the brighter side of financial life. So, energy bills, they're finally falling. Savings rates, well, they keep rising. The housing market may be a bit shambolic, but This Is Money have launched a new series to help you navigate the mortgage maze. We're going to talk about personalised licence plates and cool car features we can't live without because, well, why not? We'll also have some tips from a scammer turned good, and what money stories did Helen bring back from Glasto? Don't forget, you can stay up to date with all the latest breaking money news. Just go to thisismoney.co.uk or download the app.
Don't forget, you can stay on top of what's going on in the markets by tuning in to the Digest and Invest podcast by eToro. Go to your regular podcast platform and listen on the go. Digest and Invest by eToro, the podcast for those interested in trading and investing.
But first, household energy bills are set to fall this weekend as the new energy price cap kicks in. Good news! Okay, so it's still a pretty chunky £2,074, but it's the first fall in almost 20 months, and it'll be in place until the start of October when, of course, it's reassessed again. So how should we prepare? Should we think about fixing? But before we get to that, welcome to you both. Helen, why is the price falling?
So essentially, it's because wholesale gas costs are going down. They've been going down for quite some time broadly, but it takes a while for the market to kind of adjust and for it to all kind of filter through down to the customer. That is now happening, which is good news. As you say, still nowhere near as low as energy bills used to be a couple of years ago, but it means that for the average household, you know, using the typical amount of energy, bills are going to be £2,074 a year. So that cap will last for 3 months, so until 30th of September. At the minute, people are largely paying £2,500 a year. So that's under the government cap that they put in a little while ago. So for typical household, it's a substantial fall. So best part of £500 a year.
Anything that we should be doing to prepare for the change? Any generally good, and I can't think of a better expression than energy hygiene we should have? I know, I'm sorry, Lee, I don't know, like checking your meters more often if you don't have a smart meter, or direct anything that we should be doing that we haven't done already because we've had it pushed at us for the last 2 years?
Yeah, you should get prepared for this now, because this is the good news podcast. So let's get happy about this, right? You know, we have faced some really well, no, we have faced some incredibly high energy bills. I mean, you think the April price cap would have been £3,280 without the government support at 2,500. I mean, that is meaty. And then when you compare that to the 2,074 now that's coming, you know, that is a sizable drop. Now, the first thing I would do for your good energy hygiene, no, I can't believe I've just repeated what you said. Just some good.
You can
practice.
have that, Lee.
Oh no, I don't like it, Georgie. Don't like it. Is to definitely take a meter reading for this weekend. And in fact, I get prompted by my energy supplier all the time for an energy reading because I don't have a smart meter and I do forget from time to time. So as soon as I finish this podcast, at Shell Energy, I will be sending you my meter readings. Okay, it's all under control. I've got it. I've just got to step outside, go in the gas meter, the electricity meter. It's fine.
You'd be surprised at how much of a struggle that is, you know, to just literally take a photograph. I don't have to go more than a couple of steps, but for why it takes me, every month I get this notification from my energy supplier and I think,
I keep
I'll
on
do it tomorrow. Do it now, you lazy woman.
I keep expecting to get an email saying you are just not sending these enough and we are forcing you onto a smart meter. And to be honest, it would be my own fault not sending in. No, to be honest, I'm fairly good. I'm pretty good. I do keep on top of it. But the second thing I would say is actually just check into your energy account. Now, I was having a look around this week and logged into my Shell Energy account and realised I was actually quite heavily in credit. So I've adjusted my direct debit with the new price cap in mind, and also the fact that we are in summer, so we are going to be using less electricity and gas. Now, the crucial thing to think about with this price cap, and the reason why I say it's quite good to go and log into your account, is that you get your own personalised rate. So we always talk about these price cap rates, and we've been talking about the energy price guarantee of £2,500, and that's the typical household. Now, bearing in mind, I live in a 3-bedroom semi-detached home, probably the most bog standard home in Britain, the most pinnacle average home you could ever imagine, 3-bedroom semi-detached house. I was paying £1,750 under my energy price guarantee V3 direct debit e-bill with Show Energy, and I've logged in. I'm now being told I'm going to be paying £1,461 with its flexible 11 direct debit e-bill, and that's a £289 annual decrease. So that's nowhere near the price cap. I'm well under the price cap. We are pretty frugal in this house, to be honest, in terms of electricity and gas, and we're out a lot and all that kind of stuff. But actually, the other crucial thing to think about is that when we're talking about these price caps, we're talking about the rates that you're being charged. So my electricity rate is changing from 33.981p to 30.720, and my gas is going from 10.203p per kilowatt to 7.398 per kilowatt. So they're quite chunky decreases. So you can kind of visualize that every unit of energy you're going to be using from this weekend is going to be cheaper. However, and I think this is quite not sneaky, but there's a lot of grumbling around this. My standing charge for electricity is staying the same at 43.65p, and my gas standing charge is remaining the same at 29.11p. Now, I haven't been to Show Energy yet to find out why that's the case, but it does penalise people that use less electricity and less gas, because you can't cut that bit of your bill down. And I think that's quite sneaky in my mind. It basically costs about £300 a year just for having gas and electricity. Now, I understand that you need these costs for infrastructure and all of that kind of thing, but it still feels like it's gone up, and now the unit price is coming down, but yet the standing charge is staying the same. We're going to do a little bit of digging into that and find out what that's all about.
But Lee, I imagine, sorry for jumping in, they are dictated by two different things. So, of course, your energy bill, as Helen was pointing out, it's a lot to do with wholesale energy, etc., etc. Whereas the standing charge is related to things like infrastructure, delivering staff, keeping the network maintained and stuff. So that wouldn't be dictated by the same metric.
No, it's true, and that is correct. And actually, the other thing you've got to remember in recent years is just how many energy suppliers went bust, and some of that cash is kind of used for that reason. The kind of failure, the supplier failure type thing, and it's just very hard to justify that higher cost that's been nudging higher. There's definitely a conversation around, if you, for example, it should be linked probably more to do with how much energy you use. It shouldn't just be one flat rate for all. I personally think. But look, we're going to do some more digging into that. Yeah. We're keeping it good news.
Yeah, sorry, Lee. Sorry,
We're keeping it all bright, all fresh, breezy. This is all good. This is all good stuff. Yeah, energy bills are falling. They're going to drop by an average of 17% for every £100 per month that you pay. So that would mean £83 per month from July. Come on. These are savings, and we've talked over the last few months about everything else increasing. So at least this is a chink of good news. Yeah. And the other thing I was told in an email that I got from my energy supplier is, although there's no fixed rates at the moment, they could be incoming relatively soon. So another piece of good energy hygiene. I've just said it again. I think something else to say.
Think of a better one, Lee.
It's a sign up to alerts for any fixed rate tariffs that come out and weighing up whether they're going to be worth it or not. And of course, as always, just check if you qualify for any kind of energy help and support. The real crucial thing going from this point onwards is the next energy price cap, which is going to be in October, which is obviously when people start ramping up their energy usage more, because it starts getting colder and then we have winter, is what the price cap is going to be there. If it can fall a little bit more, at least hover around the same, we're going to still probably be paying more for energy this winter than we would be last winter because of the government support measures that were in place this winter. So that is a bit of an issue. We were all given £66 a month, So it's likely that you are going to be paying more this winter despite the price cap falling. But what it does potentially mean, and what I suspect might happen, is that there will be more targeted measures this winter round rather than measures for all. So, I was grateful for the £66 per month, but, we could have got by. I could have coped with sucking that up. And I think I'll be very surprised if there's another energy price guarantee like there was this winter. I think it will be more targeted going forward. But little chinks of light, Georgie. I'm happy to see energy prices fall. I mean, that price cap that we had in April was absolutely extraordinary. Hopefully now we're going to see it at least plateauing where we are now. But who knows, things can change quick.
Well, Helen, I was a bit nervous to ask you this because this is obviously the Good News podcast. But do we have any kind of predictions going forward? I mean, we had tons of them over the last year. It seemed every sort of energy firm was releasing a new prediction about what, and they were all as diabolical as the next. What do you think?
So I think the consensus is it's going to stay around this level for probably quite some time. I think, as Lee said, the next price cap for this winter will probably be around about the same level, and maybe staying around that kind of £2,000 mark, maybe into next year as well. It's difficult to look any further forward, but I think, it's like many things in the world of money. They kind of go up quite quickly, and then unfortunately it takes a while for them to kind of come back down. I think people are going to absolutely hate me for this, because I'm one of the few very lucky people in terms of energy bills. I signed up to a fix in August 2021 because I moved house, a 2-year fix, which obviously ends in August 2023. So I feel very lucky. But I was kind of hoping that this would have, fixes would be back by then, and I'd be able to just seamlessly kind of slide onto another fix. But it looks like that's probably not going to be possible, or at least not be possible at a kind of reasonable level. So I'm finally going to be hit by the energy crisis in a couple of months' time.
But you were saved over the last couple of years, so think of it like that. Look, one question I do want to ask, it's not really good news, but I just want to mention it. EDF quietly withdrawing their quarterly billing as a payment option. So the residential customers, Helen, will be moved to monthly billing. What's the significance of that?
Yeah, so this is something they've kind of done a little bit on the sly, and it's quite unfair, really, in my opinion. A lot of customers do obviously pay monthly by direct debit, but there are still people out there who prefer paying quarterly. The main advantage of that is that if you pay quarterly, the bill gets sent to you slightly before your payment is due. So it gives you a chance to kind of check the bill, check that there aren't any sort of erroneous charges on there, which has actually been quite a big issue. In the last few months, I get a lot of readers contacting me saying, I spot this on my bill and I really don't think it's quite right. And paying quarterly gives you just that little window to kind of question things before the money goes out. It's obviously not necessarily taken directly from your account as well. So it gives you a bit more kind of agency over what's happening. And also a lot of older people tend to prefer paying quarterly because it's a good way to go for people who are paying by cheque. So it's kind of a personal preference thing, but there are a lot of people who prefer it. So I think EDF kind of taking that option away is, a bit unfair, really. It kind of gives them license to just kind of take money out of people's account every month without them necessarily getting the chance to question it. So I do think that's, a bit cheeky, really.
We've had a deluge of people get in touch with us as well. It's surprising how many people do still pay by quarterly billing. And people, you and Helen may not sit down and write checks and pay bills that way, but there's still a generation of people that like to keep control in that way. And I hate this kind of squeezing down of options for people. If people are happily paying by quarterly billing, and that's what they've done for a very long time, and that's the way that they've been used to budgeting, I don't really understand why you would take that away from them. Most major energy suppliers do allow you to pay quarterly still. EDF are just saying basically that they're removing this to stop shock bills. So, I guess 1 month's worth of energy opposed to 3 months worth of energy in the current climate. I understand to a degree.
Sorry, horses bolted on that one, though.
But the horses bolted. Yeah, surely you would have done that a year ago. Yeah,
right.
and that's the thing. And I think it's just another squeezing down of options. I think it's just another way of trying to get people not to pay by cheque. And I think it's not on. And as I say, there's plenty of people that will be listening to this going, oh, it's just checks. People got to get into the 21st century. But, we're talking about people's grandmothers and grandfathers and, older generation that like to manage their bills that way. And I just think that they're getting left behind in this kind of real race towards just stopping options for people. That's my viewpoint.
Right. We're going to move on. Not been a lot of good cheer around the housing market. It's in a bit of a mess at the minute. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, this is just a podcast after all. But what This Is Money can do, it has done, and it's launched a brand new series to help you navigate the mortgage maze. Lee, tell me all about the new series.
Yeah, so this has come off the back of basically personal experience. We're clearly into Mortgage Mayhem Part 2. I feel like things have calmed down a little bit more this week. There hasn't been as much kind of, frenzied reporting about mortgage rates, and it feels a little bit calmer. But the average 2-year fixed and average 5-year fixed mortgage rate is still ticking higher, and they have been ticking higher this week. I have not been this popular since October. And that's because people are just messaging me, friends, asking for mortgage advice, basically coming up to remortgage, or they want to overpay, or they're just confused about how to kind of navigate this sort of maze, this mortgage maze. That's what we've called it, navigate the mortgage maze. That's what this new series is called. And even my wife, she just forwards me on, can you send this over to Lee and get his advice? I'm not a mortgage broker. I'm not a financial advisor. I can tell you kind of what the rates are and give some very broad brush advice, which would be contact your lender, contact your broker, use overpayment calculators. There's loads of great tools online where you can do all of this kind of stuff now, where you can figure it all out. But when we did the podcast a couple of weeks ago and we were talking about the mortgage stuff, I kind of actually had a bit of a light bulb moment where I thought, hold on, why haven't we launched a series with an expert where people can write in their real life questions about their mortgage and we get them to answer? And that's exactly what we've done. So, we've done this kind of thing for many years. We've had Sir Steve Webb, writing our pensions column, answering reader queries for the last 7 years. 7 years have flown by, but he's unearthed all sorts of stories from that. And we've helped, he and Tanya Jeffries have helped thousands of people. In fact, I'd say millions of people really over the last 7 years. We've got Heather Rogers, who does all of our tax experts, lots of confusing tax questions we get written and given to us. And we've got Dave Fishwick, who's our small business doctor. Lots of people writing in with their small business questions. So from this week, we have David Hollingworth from L&C Mortgages. And he is an experienced broker. He's one of the go-to voices in the mortgage industry. A lot of personal finance journalists go to him. And the idea is people write in with their mortgage questions and he answers one once a week. It's going to be every Tuesday, unpicking the kind of the mortgage maze that's going on. So this week, to launch the column was something that I think a lot of people are thinking about or are in this boat. So we've obviously got 1 million or so people that are having to come up to remortgage in the short term, and that's a worry for them. They might be getting bumped onto a higher rate. A lot of people coming off 2-year fixes, that kind of thing. Someone's written in, actually, they've got almost like the opposite problem. They're worried they're not going to take advantage of their ultra low mortgage rate that they've got at the moment. So they've got a nationwide mortgage, 1.24% rate, which is, a year and a half ago, it wasn't that extraordinary. Now seems absolutely bonkers. But they've got it till 2026. And they want to know the best way to overpay. Now, I'm not going to paraphrase David. If you want to read the article, I'd go on This Is Money and have a look, because it will get boring me just reading out his answer. But it's a very interesting topic, and people are wondering how much they can overpay by. Can they get penalised if they overpay too much? And crucially, I think the big question people are asking themselves at the moment, if you've got 1.24% mortgage rate, and then there's savings rates that are 5% plus, what is your best bet? Do you put a lump sum or save monthly into a savings account and then pay off a lump sum off the mortgage, or pay half and half? It's you can see why we've launched this, navigating the mortgage maze, because it's hard to kind of know as an average person that probably only looks at their mortgage every so often to try and figure it all out.
See, good news, Lee. I mean,
and good
in a bad situation.
Yeah, and good news and savings rates as well. I mean, do you want
Lee,
want me to pile in?
I was just about to go on to that one. Do have some good news on savings rates, still on the march upwards, though. Helen, I wonder what's going on at Smart Save Bank. Just explain to me here, because it's raised its 1-year fixed savings deal 14 times, is it, in 27 days? 14 times in 27 days.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary stuff, actually. So in one 30-hour period between the 13th and 14th of June, SmartSave increased its rate 4 times in 30 hours. They're really, really going for it. So SmartSave are a challenger, one of these newer sort of banks, and they're doing it basically to get a bit of kind of marketing for themselves, to be honest, and sort of stay ahead of the competition. People might not have heard of them, but if they're bringing out these fantastic sort of table topping rates, then, you know, people are going to sign up. It's a smart move from SmartSave, get the word around about them and kind of get people signed up. And obviously works very nicely to the advantage of customers as well. But we're seeing so many savings rate rises at the moment. Our savings reporter Ed Magnus has been worked into the ground. It's every single day there's a new decent rate coming out. So if you're in the market for a new savings account, it's definitely a very, very good time to kind of have a look at our tables, our independent Best Buy tables. We list all of the latest savings rates they come out. So yeah, check them out and see what you could get.
I have a funny look on my face. You can't tell in the podcast because the brain is whirring and it's actually got nothing to do with savings. But it was making me think, you know, when you get charged by your insurer or your bank for some menial little change in your policy of some sort, you know, £10 admin fee or whatever, 14 times in 27. How much admin fee would that be, Lee? I tell you, honestly, never again am I going to take those £10 admin fees when there's that many changes going on at one bank in a month.
Well, actually, to be honest as well, if you've opened up a 1-year fix at the start of this month to compare to opening up this week, you at a 0.7 percentage point change in 1 month for the Best Buy 1-year fix. I mean, that's a difference on a fair amount of interest depending on when you open the account. It's a kind of real tricky one at the moment to know when to sort of act. And in the case of SmartSave and in the case of a lot of these challenger banks, they have to wrestle to the top of the Best Buy tables in order to attract customers, because they're unknown names and people are very cagey and cautious, as they should be with their savings. All of the banks that we feature in our savings tables have FSCS protection up to £85,000. But even that, still, people want to know about the customer service experience. They want to know how money can be got at if they need it, all of that kind of thing. And for that reason, a big bank can launch a kind of middle-of-the-road savings rate and they'll clobber in all sorts of cash because people got their current account with them and trust them. Some of these smaller banks, it is so crucial for them to be at the top of the Best Buy table, like SmartSave, that they're changing the rate that often. And it is great for savers at the moment. You know, there are some real decent returns out there. As we keep pointing out, though, nothing is beating inflation, but we're getting closer. This week we've seen a 4 and 5 year fix launch at 6%. So we've now got a 6% savings rate, and that comes from JN Bank, which is a small bank in London. Again, FSCS protected, but again, a small name. So it's not going to draw in loads of cash because people don't know who they are. Again, that's why they're at the top of the Best Buy. But even Lloyds have got in the act this week. You can get a Best Buy cash ISA now with them. If you're a customer, 5.05%. If you're not a customer, you can get 5%. So although lots of the banks have dragged their heels at passing base rate on, and they really have dragged their heels when some of the banks are still offering hovering around 1% on easy access, which is just criminal. A lot of them have got little secret pockets of deals here and there. HSBC 4%, regular saver at 7% from HSBC and First Direct. There's little chinks of light in the savings market. We've got another new Best Buy Easy Access account, 4.3% from Newcastle Building Society. That's open to all. That tracks base rate, so it will go up automatically within 5 days of base rate going up. There's all sorts of chinks of light. Now, you might be listening to this going, how can I keep up with all this? This is bonkers. And that's why when Helen was talking about Ed, I've actually emailed Ed today saying, you know what, chip off a little bit early tonight, because he has put in some work this week. It's not just finding out about the accounts, it's them writing about the accounts, it's getting comments on the accounts, it's then sending it out as our savings alert service. So we relaunched our savings alert service at the start of this year, got almost 16,000 people signed up. If you want to be one of them, to be on top of the game, thisismoney.co.uk/alert. Really simple. You just put your email address in and Ed will just email you the best rates as they come out. And that's been phenomenally successful. And then can you imagine all of that as your day job? And then he's also got to update the savings tables in this current environment where there's all sorts of chopping and changing and going into those tables and jiggling them all about. It's a lot of work, and he has really kept on top of it. But we are the go-to place, I would argue, to keep up to date with all the savings stories, and our readers are currently lapping it up.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's not just savings; it's go-to for all sorts of money, Lee.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a particular, the savings market is
cheers all round for
let's just all pat our backs.
Well done.
We'll just finish there, shall we? Now, matey.
That's it for part one.
I'm now joined by Sam North from eToro for our weekly look at what's been going on the markets. Sam, what's been happening?
Yeah, on the face of it, it was expected to be relatively quiet, and it kind of has been. Today marks the last day of the month, the quarter, and the first half of the year, so it's likely that there would have been a bit of rebalancing, a bit of repricing in markets in the last few days. So I was never really going to read too much into what has happened anyway. But we have pushed higher. We followed the path of least resistance for most equity markets. And some of the headlines that have stood out, well, the US banks passed the annual Fed stress test. I mean, that's a positive. Jerome Powell and the Fed continued a little bit more hawkish rhetoric, and Nike results warned of the discretionary spending outlook. So a mixed bag, but overall positive. Inflation data in Europe was also mixed. We do have some US data coming out the back part of the day today, which is worth having a watch. But overall, a pretty solid week.
Interesting stuff. And what do we have to look forward to next week?
Well, the first point to note is that it's Independence Day in America on the Tuesday, which means the markets are closed. And also there's going to be an early finish on the Monday. So volumes will be low across all markets on the Monday and the Tuesday, and potentially even the Wednesday as people nurse a hangover or two. However, from the US, we do have some important data out next Friday, which is the latest jobs report. We're expecting to see about 250,000 new jobs for the month of June, but an unemployment to reach a 7-month high. So this would show that the rate hikes are starting to do their job. So one to watch there. For oil traders, OPEC are meeting, which is always interesting, full of twists and turns. So keep a watch on that. We've also got the latest RBA rate decision, one to watch as they surprised markets last time out by raising. And we've also got the latest FOMC minutes and some Canadian employment data, which makes what could have been quite a quiet week a pretty busy one.
Okay, so yeah, maybe not as quiet as we might have thought. Good stuff. All right, thanks, Sam. Speak to you next week.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Forget art, rare watches and classic cars. Personalised number plates are where it's at for investors. The market is worth £2 billion, and according to one expert, they're delivering higher returns than more traditional investments. What sort of makes me laugh, Helen, in this article is it says personalised number plates were once seen as the reserve of posers and the ultra-wealthy. Well, I don't know about the ultra-wealthy, but come on, they're still viewed as the reserve of the posers, aren't they? Really?
It's absolutely wild to me. I mean, I don't currently own a car. I'm not really a car person, so maybe I'm not the person to kind of speak to about this, but this just seems absolutely mad. So popular personalised number plates are going for £45,000. That is just insane to me. That's, one's kind of popular names or popular initials. There was one, the world's most expensive number plate, sold for £12 million. That was just a number 7. Just a number 7. £12 million. I mean, I find this absolutely insane. But
Cristiano Ronaldo bought that? I mean, I can't think people would have been that interested in that.
Was it him? We don't know. But then I suppose, these people would probably think the amount that I spend on a handbag is insane. So we won't judge. It's, horses for courses.
I mean, I don't know. Like, how much is it for just a bog standard I don't know, Lee, G30 exclamation mark, something that looks semi like Georgie, but isn't. How much would I be forking out for that?
The real market, the real market of this, and where prices have been going up, have been popular initials along with like 1 or 2 digits to go alongside it. So typically 2 initials, but sometimes 3 initials, and then 1 or 2 numbers next to it. Anything else is probably going to be a little bit more, not likely to have grown much in value, more likely to be quite personal or niche to the person that's got it. But if you owned GF1, for example, that is probably 6 figures, I would imagine.
Wow.
And then if it was like GF 100, again, probably, I mean, I'm not exactly like a dealer here, but these things are going for big bucks. Really has blown up in the last few years. I drive around now, and I honestly, I'd say 1 in 5 cars at least has a personalised number plate. I might be a bit skewed. I'm out in Essex. Obviously, Essex is a bit of a notorious sort of boy racer kind of hotspot. Even looking out my window right now as I record this podcast, I'm looking over at an MG that someone's got opposite. I think it's a fairly rare one, and that's got a personalised number plate, and it's just 1 letter, 2 numbers, and then 2 letters after it. I reckon that's worth quite a bit. And I've got a couple of stories to tell you about this, Georgie. So actually, before I wade into the personal stories, to give a couple of examples of this. So the number 7 number plate that Helen mentioned there is in Dubai. That I don't think that would be road legal over here in Britain. But I'd tell you one that did go, and that has been quite a famous example, is F1. So basically for Formula One, it was sold for 440 grand in 2008. It's reportedly worth £10 million now. And the guy that owns it has turned down offers for it, allegedly. And then the guy in this story that we've written, John Kirkbright, who's the founder of this Plate Hunter website, is saying basically, for example, he bought a short, catchy name for 20 grand in 2020, and then he sold it on again a year later for 40 grand. So if you know what you're doing, there's potentially money to be made here. And in the 90s, a lot of plates went for about 2 to 10 grand, is what he's saying. But due to, rising popularity of getting these, they can go for up to 45 grand, basically. So a lot of people could be sitting on quite a bit of cash. I've got 2 very, very quick personal stories about this. Now, I don't have a personalised number plate, but my wife inherited one. So she's got it's 2 initials of her grandfather and 2 numbers after it. And it's just on a little Ford Fiesta. Now, we were in a drab car park, supermarket car park. Rain was lashing down. This was a fair few months ago. And we got a tap at the window. I was like, what's going on here? Okay, I wound down the window. The guy was like, I want to buy your number plate. I want to buy your number plate. And we're like, yeah, it's not for sale. He was like, okay, can I take your number? Can we just stay in touch in WhatsApp in case you change your mind? It's my initials. It's also my number. I really, really, really want it. Name your price. Now, I don't know how much money this guy had got, but I reckon he was pretty serious about it. And I reckon this number plate's it's worth way more than the Fiesta that it's stuck on. Now, the other story I had, I was at a village fete, and I was putting some goods into the car boot of my mother-in-law's car. Now, she's got a personalised number plate, and that's 2 initials and a rounded 3 number. Again, a guy, he was absolutely, I've got to buy that number plate. And I was like, it's not my number plate, it's my mother-in-law's number plate, and she will not sell it. This is like, 6 figures plus. I'm sure of it. It would have been bought for far less than that, but it has grown so much in value. And he wants me to introduce him to my mother-in-law. And I'm like, it's a bit awkward. Right, she probably thinks I'm just trying to flog off a registration plate here. So I was like, okay, come over and name your price. And my wife's mum was like, it's not for sale.
As you rip it off her car.
She was like, you could offer me £1 million and I wouldn't sell it. And I genuinely think this guy would have offered a lot of money. So I think these 2 little examples over the last year, these are honestly 2 real life examples of things that have happened. Probably show how much of a competitive market it's become, especially for initials. I think that people have gone really bananas for it and are seeing it as a kind of real investment at the moment. Now, me personally, I'm not fussed. A car's a car. It drives from A to B. I don't need to have a personalised number plate on the car. Yeah. That's just. But some people love it. Yeah. And look, people, especially people that bought these in the 90s onwards, could be sitting on a huge amount of cash. So if you have got a personalised number plate that's a little bit unique, I mean, there's no harm going and check out how much it might now have grown in value.
Yeah, I don't really care about personalised number plate. I mean, it might be easier for me to remember the amount of time you have to put your license plate into parking. I mean, there's some benefits to it, but I only know one person, and I'm going to throw him under the bus here, and that's my other half as a personalised number plate. And honestly, I still can't get over it. Like, why? But the only thing I can think is that if you're bothered about having an older car, that it sort of masks how old your car is. But if people know anything about cars, they'll know.
Well, you have to be. There are rules around it. You do have to be quite careful. So you. Well,
I was going to say that. What other rules? Can you get like a really naughty word or something? I mean, Helen, chip in by all means. You don't have a car, but you know.
No, they block rude things that spell out rude words, and they also you can't make a car appear newer than what it is. With your plate, so you have to be a little bit
new car.
Yeah, but more like you put like a 70 plate on a car that's like 15 years old or whatever. Like there are certain rules around it. But to be honest, what we're talking about here is the real market for the initials and short numbers. That's really what's blown up in popularity, and also things. Do you know? I see this all the time. I see a certain car will have the letters of the car. So again, take an example of the car I'm looking outside, the MG one. Part of the number plate the guy's got opposite is MG. So I've seen a lot of Porsches, for example. I've seen a couple of Porsche Boxsters recently. I've had like box 10 on it and that kind of thing. And a couple of my favourites that I've seen, I don't know why, but there seems to be quite a high amount of Skoda Yetis around the area that I live in. And a lot of people seem to have number plates on them. Right. So there's at least 3 or 4 in this area that have got Skoda Yetis. If you're one of them, get in touch. And it says and then a number with it. So there's all sorts of iterations that are popular, but it is really the initials that are top dog.
I said at the start this would be a 45-minute pod, but Lee, I think we could go on and on about personals, but we won't. We're not going to talk about that because Helen, you've got another poll on your website. Rather enjoy this. 13,000 motorists had identified the 10 must-have features we cannot live without. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring here now and say, as you was asked this, what's the best investment you've made under 50 quid? It's a GPS. My car doesn't have it, so it's separate. I can't live without it, Helen. Honestly, it's the best thing about my phone. I don't know what we did without that. The paper maps, probably, but I'd be walking around the street. What else can't we live without, Helen?
Yeah, do you remember the era of like going on the AA website and printing out your route? And then like I remember sitting in the passenger seat and like reading out the directions from the AA website. That was a wild time as a teenager, wasn't it? Fun.
Helen, I remember before that when we had just the big atlas books in the back of the car. We didn't none of that internet rubbish. We had dial-ups and stuff. Anyway.
Excellent. So the top 10 most desired car features. You're right, shows just how far we've come with all the fancy gadgets you can get. So I'll do you a rundown. Number 1, most desired car feature, parking sensors. Number 2, as you said, your GPS, your sat nav. 57% of people want that in their new car. 3, heated windscreen. 4, USB charging, charge your phone. 5, Bluetooth connectivity. 6 is a rear view camera. 7, parking cameras.
I don't have that in my car.
8 is your cruise control. 9 is heated seats, which I actually find really uncomfortable. I do not like a heated seat. Just find them very, very strange and bizarre.
I've got to say, it makes me feel like I've wet myself.
I have to say, I'm
sorry. I shouldn't have said
I was like, can I say that on the podcast?
Yeah, I just did.
And I quite agree.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. Yeah.
Yeah, 28% of people though keen on a heated seat, and 10 is a bit more of an old-fashioned one. Your cup holder.
Yeah, that's a classic. That is a classic. It's just making me realise just how shoddy my car is. I mean, I'm just grateful it goes from A to B, and has a GPS that's I've put into it. It's not updated, so it's really old. But Lee, you're Helen, you don't have a car, but if you were to have a car, do you have a preference of what you would want in it?
I mean, I think I'd definitely want a cup holder.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Windows, wheels, an engine is always useful.
Wheels, a roof would be nice.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. topless one is quite trendy.
Quite basic.
Do you know what I quite liked about the survey as well is that 25% of people said they wanted a CD player, which I absolutely rate that. I mean, there's still 1 in 4 people, we were talking about checks earlier. There's still people that like listen to their CDs, got a vast CD collection, all the fiddling about with Bluetooth, trying to connect it to your phone and all of that. Like, I mean, it's sometimes, but I think a couple of these things that have come onto cars have improved the driving experience. I think that parking cameras and a rear view camera, I quite like my rear view camera. I think it's quite nice. My wife absolutely hates it, won't use it. Parallel parking or going into a tight spot, she just won't use it. She thinks it's cheating, which I think is absolutely brilliant, whereas I rely on it quite a lot. The parking sensors, sometimes great, sometimes absolutely irritating as hell, if I'm being quite frank. Heated seats, do you know what? We got the car built with heated seats and very rarely use it. It gives me a bad back. It makes my back feel weird. So I kind of agree what you were saying about maybe not wanting to wet myself. But
don't want to, just feels like I have.
USB charging, that's just a no for me. Just charge your phone at home. It doesn't work very well. I mean, I don't get it. But it's an interesting, in-depth survey. And it shows that, a lot of modern features are great. And I think the best feature of my car, and I've said this before on the podcast, is the fact that it's automatic. I'd never go back. It's brilliant.
Oh no, that's not driving. No, automatics. Won't be having any of that. Good news podcast though.
It's the future. You have to drive one soon when all the cars are electric.
With cars. Yeah, no, there's no future. We're all going to be in little pods. Anyway, moving on. Helen, scamming, again, not something that's traditionally good news, but you have a Fraudsters Diary. So you've been speaking, or they've been speaking with a reformed scammer. The aim is to try and lift the lid on the murky world of financial fraud and help us, of course, become victims. So this was your idea. Tell us about it. What's the issue with financial fraud and what's the blog about?
Yeah, so I actually find this so interesting. I've been writing quite a bit about different scams lately. And a few weeks ago, someone got in touch with me and just kind of knew instantly I wanted him to write something for us. So it's a group of people. So 2 of them are former police officers, but fraud specialists. So one of them's a former detective for the Met, and another one of them used to work for Action Fraud. So these 2 guys are called Peter Barron and Steve Profit. They've decided that they want to really help people get to grips with all the scams that are out there. We see a lot of things, how to avoid scams, but they generally tend to be focused on, scams that are already out there, scams that a lot of people are already getting hit by. And what they want to do is to look at what's coming next. What are the new things that are coming down the line? Because the way that scammers work, as soon as too many people have heard about something they're doing, they switch. They're switching all the time. They're really nimble. And they're always thinking of new ways to kind of catch people out. So their idea is, let's get ahead of this. And the way they've decided to do that is they've teamed up with a former fraudster. So he's reformed. He obviously has to stay anonymous. But together they're writing this blog on their website called Fraudsters Diary, where they kind of bring their police and sort of legal insight, and he brings his inside knowledge into the fraudster's mind, basically, which is so interesting. So I've got them to write something for us. This one is written by this former fraudster, and he's talking about AI, essentially. This is obviously hearing a lot about this kind of new thing where you can use computers to essentially spoof things that human beings would do. And it's going to be quite big, unfortunately, for scammers. If you can spoof someone's writing or someone's voice, that's going to be potentially a really valuable tool for them. So the particular scam that he's written about, this is something that's quite new. It's obviously, it's probably not going to be a huge scam, as it's kind of quite specific, but it's really scary. So the way this works is scammer will go onto social media and they'll find basically a well-off kind of teenager, someone in their 20s, who's on Instagram or TikTok, showing off their fancy lifestyle, fancy car, fancy handbags, fancy holidays, and someone who's posting a lot of videos. The scammer will find these, they'll find this person and they'll see that they're going away, going on holiday, and that they've posted a video talking about maybe the holiday that they're going on. And they can now go into that video, take a clip of their voice, and basically reuse that recording of their voice to turn it into them saying almost absolutely anything. They can use a few sentences from them and spoof their voice into saying essentially whatever they like, which is obviously really scary. So the way that they're using this is they are using that recording of their voice, turning it into a message which basically says that they've gone on holiday and they've been kidnapped. Someone snatched them. They're then calling this teenager's parents, playing them the recording, and essentially getting them to pay ransom to a kidnapper to let their teenager go. So really terrifying stuff. But it just shows you, I think, how clever they are, and the multitude of ways that there are now out there to trick people. I mean, it's a panic situation, isn't it? If you're a parent, you know your kid's gone on holiday somewhere, and you get this call. They can also spoof your number. So you know how a lot of people now will get a call from someone pretending to be their bank, and they can fraudsters make it come up as a bank phone number. They can also do that for their child, so it would look to the parent like their child was calling them. And of course, many of them would fall for it, and many of them would pay it. I mean, of course you would. You're panicked and you're told someone's got your kid. You're not thinking clearly. So you would pay it. And the thing is as well, many of them are so embarrassed that they would never report it, which makes it obviously even harder to get hold of these people. So sorry, Julie, not a particularly positive.
That's not
story,
good news,
but
but
I think
the
it's very interesting one.
Is good. That's I suppose to be forewarned is to be forearmed, or whatever the expression is. But goodness me, we're all stuffed, aren't we? Because all of our voices are everywhere. Lee, terrible scam man. Are you Lee the scam man Boyce at one stage during the podcast over the 9 years? Something that's close to your heart. I always sense, and I don't know if this is fair enough, but people don't take the stories necessarily about scamming and those sorts of things that seriously. Maybe people view it as with still this kind of, you have to be a bit stupid to allow that to happen, or we just don't want to hear about it because we can't fathom it. But with generative AI, and I keep talking about it at the moment on sort of podcasts and webinars and all sorts of things, it's the buzz thing of the day. It is going to be so much more prevalent. These sorts of things that Helen says, it's going to be so much easier to fake our voices and all sorts of things. Are we prepared for the future, Lee?
The first thing to say about that, Georgie, is, you're right. A lot of people do think, you've got to be stupid to fall for a scam, and banks shouldn't be blindly refunding people that have clearly, quite stupidly fallen for the scam. There's no such thing as being stupid and falling for a scam. In my opinion, the people that do these are professional, organised gangs that know what they're doing. They know how to instill panic and fear, and no one should ever feel embarrassed or ashamed that they've been defrauded in any way like this. At the end of the day, all it takes is for someone to catch you at a low moment, or to catch you on the hop, or to panic you about your children, the thing you care about the most, or you might be someone that's vulnerable. There's no real blanket of, you're stupid, you've fallen for a scam. There's a lot of things at play. Now, yes, a lot of scams that we report on and talk about, we try and stay on the forefront of much of the scams we can, and we have done since we launched our Beat the Scammers channel many years ago. It's just to try and arm people with knowledge. Now, yes, there are a big wave of people out there that just simply wouldn't fall for a scam. They're just too savvy, and that's because, they listen to podcasts like this or elsewhere, or they read about these scams. So the classic one of the last couple of years has been the WhatsApp mum and dad scam. Lots of people have fallen for that one. And I think that, it is easy. It's easy to fall for these things. Now, the step up from this now is the AI stuff. As you say, there's a lot of kind of talk about AI and what the future of AI and what it does. There is, in my mind, a very big possibility that, in the wrong hands, some of these AI programs and stuff could become more sophisticated. They become even more difficult for the everyday person to sort of spot. And, if you talk, going back to the WhatsApp mum and dad scam, it's quite a basic scam. You get a WhatsApp message, hi mum, or hi dad, I've lost my bank card, I need you to send me some money, or, alliterations like that. There's various ways. What about if it was a phone call from your child, and you've got absolutely no idea, it just sounds like your child. You'd have no idea, I guess the big question for me would be, how responsive and reactive would it be to the conversation? And then would it be quite obvious that it's robotic? I don't know all of the ins and outs of it. Makes me think that it would, don't know, it's probably in its infancy, but there'll be some horrible people out there looking at ways to use AI to their advantage, to defraud people. And I just hope that banks are on top of this and thinking and have teams, crack teams that are, fully aware of this potential incoming storm. So I'm going to keep it good news and say,
I was going to say, come on.
I think the good news angle of this is that there has been a lot reported on AI, and I think a lot of us are a lot more clued up on scams than we were a decade ago. And I think that, we will just keep reporting on this.
Yeah.
And even if it's something that you would never fall for or something that you would never do, you share it with your parents, your grandparents, people that are more vulnerable, and we could just all got to work together to try and stamp out as much
here,
as possible.
Here, Lee. Right, finally this week, Helen. I mean, I think of all the things that people come back from Glasto with, a raging hangover probably is one of them, a lot of lack of sleep, missing a few things rather than coming back with things, or maybe someone else's clothes. You came back with some financial lessons. Is that right? Really?
Yeah, I did. So returned from Glastonbury on Monday. I'm just about feeling human again. We're recording this on Thursday. So I'm feeling a bit more myself. Although I will say one of the reasons I'm feeling a bit fresher is because I actually went as a volunteer this year. Okay. So we've all heard about, well, many of us have heard about the ludicrous battle to get Glastonbury tickets. I unfortunately failed this year, and I am the world's biggest fan of one Sir Elton John for my sins. So I knew I had to go. So I decided to volunteer as a steward and get my ticket that way. So I was a bit sceptical about it, kind of working at a festival. I'm much more used to having a slightly more hedonistic time. Actually, it was really nice. So I was there for 6 days, had to do 3 shifts for a few hours. Got to see loads of music, got to see my Elton, Arctic Monkeys, Blondie, got to see loads of the big acts. And it was actually really nice. The people who volunteer there are just such a nice kind of committed group of people. It's so nice to see people just giving their time. Obviously you get a free ticket, but some people have done this for years and years and years, and they just love looking after people at the festival, going around chatting to all kinds of people. It's actually really nice, and you get free tickets. So yeah, definitely recommend to anyone who's interested in that kind of thing.
What do you have to do?
Stewarding, so just walking around, kind of checking everyone's okay, moving people out of the sun if they're a bit worse for wear, taking the odd person in the medical tent. But largely, people just asking me for the time because everyone's phones were dead, and asking me where the nearest toilet and bars were, which is just quite easy. Just a lot of pointing.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
See, that I don't mind. I'll be honest with you. The idea of Glasto for me, and I couldn't think of anything worse. Honestly, I couldn't think of anything worse. But that, I don't mind.
Helen, how do you sign up? It's just in case people listen. In case people are interested, how do we?
So there's loads of different organisations that you can volunteer with. I actually got it through a mate who's kind of done it for years. But the main ones, if you want to sign up and you kind of don't have a way in, Oxfam and WaterAid and Greenpeace are the charities that have loads and loads of volunteers there. I don't think you'd be able to sign up for next year just yet, but yeah, closer to next summer, check it out. They have loads and loads of spaces for volunteers and doing things like filling up people's water bottles and litter picking and stewarding as well. So I'd say the best way in probably is to go through those charities.
Okay. And the financial lessons that you learn. One thing you said was that there's a lot of cash taken.
Yeah, exactly. And not just for kind of nefarious purchases, although I imagine that's probably quite a lot of it. But yeah, it was interesting, actually. I think festivals, obviously it's not like they were years ago. A lot of the sort of food stalls and bars and, sort of t-shirt stores, they do take card. But actually, a lot of them still don't. I was kind of, went in my London mentality thinking, I'll be able to pay for everything on my card. Actually, you can't. I think what I forgot was a lot of these traders are still small businesses, and they still want to take cash. They have to pay these fees for every credit card transaction. Some of them obviously being Glastonbury, being quite left wing, had signs that saying, don't let your bank rule your life, like pay for everything in cash, which seems a bit extreme, but also they do have a point. You pay for something at a festival with a £20 note, that person use it, goes and pays a business bill with it, they go and pay, and it stays the £20 note. You don't get it whittled away and whittled down by fees and fees and fees, which does, there is a point there, and it does make sense, I think. I know Lee agrees with me on this one.
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's just, again, it's about choice, isn't it? Like, if a place says cash only, it kind of makes me want to use my card. And if a place says card only, it kind of makes me want to use cash, just to make a point. But there are certain events and certain things that I would just presume are cash only. So going back to the Village Fete, I can't believe I'm talking about the Village Fete again, I went to last weekend. I help out every year at. This year, for the first time, I always take cash. It's in a church grounds, there's lots of little small businesses and food vans and trucks and blah, blah, blah. Just take a load of cash. This year, for the first time ever, most places took card. I actually was really quite surprised by it. And for me, that's just the sort of place where I just want to pay cash. I just like to use cash in those kind of transactions and to, stay a little bit off grid. Now, I know that makes me sound absolutely like some sort of like conspiracy theory nut, but, knowledge is power, and all the information that banks hold on us is valuable. No, I'm not saying I don't go around and use my card, because I do. And I use my card for the majority of transactions. But I also do like some purchases I like to make with cash. For example, I like to go to the pub with cash. I just like it. It's not that I think the bank's going to do anything with that data. It knows I'm in Wetherspoons, so is it building up some sort of profile on me? I just like to say, well, do you know what? I've got 20 quid and I'll probably get about 4,000 beers in Wetherspoons. But it's just kind of nice just to pay by cash and feel a little bit off of the grid. I still pay for a haircut with cash. There's just little bits and pieces that I still just like to do. So when I get paid, I always withdraw £100 cash from the cash machine for the month. It's like my float money for bits and pieces, bits of fun, magazines, let's say pints, just little things I just think don't need to be paid for by card. And there's a lot of people out there that will disagree with me and say, God, you sound like, some old
Terminator.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, it's nothing more than just like having a bit of control. And it's easy to budget as well with cash. But what about the Octopus turbine, Helen? What's that all about?
Yeah, so I found this so interesting. So I was sitting, this was Sunday, I was feeling a bit jaded by this point. I was sitting by one of the food stalls, eating me some little tacos, and I noticed there was a wind turbine. Not unusual for Glastonbury, they're very into green energy, that kind of thing, saving the planet. But looking a bit closer, I noticed that this wind turbine had the Octopus Energy company logo on it, which I just thought so illustrates how different Octopus is kind of seen compared to the rest of the energy companies. Like, can you imagine if British Gas wanted to put something in Glastonbury? They'd be absolutely, like, people would tear it down. But I just find it so interesting how Octopus, I'm with Octopus, and they are, in my experience, they've been a very good energy company, but just their marketing is insane. They're completely seen as the good guys of energy, and to get into Glastonbury, I mean, that is a massive achievement for an energy firm. I just find it like whoever's doing Octopus's marketing, absolutely fair play. Like you've smashed it.
Is Octopus the rock and roll of energy firms, do we think? I mean,
I'm with Octopus.
Oh, okay.
So I wouldn't say it's the rock and roll, but my lights are still working, the house is heated, so everyone's a winner. Right, that's it. You can keep up to date with the latest breaking money news. Just go to thisismoney.co.uk or download the app. And if you have any comments or questions for the team or anything you'd like them to look into, Lee?
You can email us at editor@thisismoney.co.uk. And that's also, if you've got mortgage questions for our new column, you can email that address as well. You can follow us at This Is Money on Twitter, and you can also leave comments in the article in which this podcast will live. And if you are Elton John or someone else that played at Glastonbury, please do get in touch with Helen. We'd like to know if we've got any rock and roll star listeners.
And if you like our podcast, why not rate us wherever you found us? It helps other people find us too.
Don't forget, you can stay on top of what's going on in the markets by tuning in to the Digest and Invest podcast by eToro. Go to your regular podcast platform and listen on the go. Digest and Invest by eToro, the podcast for those interested in trading and investing.